Alright, so yeah, I don't really go to a wall with an outline anymore. I just have a general idea or a concept like, oh, I really like that kind of 3D sketch I did, or I really like that sketch that I did with these colors, so I'm gonna make sure to use these colors. I have a general idea of what I want to paint, but not exact, because I always kind of paint in the moment. I think it comes out way better that way. So let's continue on to actual letter structure. There are many ways, especially for beginners, to get onto letter structure and to actually formulate their letters. Let me mention a couple that I started with, but I don't necessarily recommend, and I'll tell you why. Alright, so one of the most easy ways to come up with your own letters, quote unquote, is I call it the two pencil method, where you get two pens. So let's say you have two pens right here, and you could tape them together so it's easier, and you draw your letter. So let's talk about letters first, okay? So let's talk about some of my favorite letters. My favorite letters have to be something like R, S, what are some other good ones? E. Let's talk about those first, okay? So you look at the letters R, S, and E, and a lot of people try to do too much with graffiti, and they're just trying to draw the letter with a million arrows coming off of it, or like crazy wild styles like interconnecting with each other and all that stuff, and then it ends up just coming out as a big blob. And first of all, it's unreadable, it doesn't look clean or planned out, and it lacks flow. So what you have to actually know or do for yourself is establish your own style, what you want to do. You want to go 3D, you want to go wild style, you want to do clean letters, you want to do like subway type of graph, European, New York, LA. And then you need to actually sit down and study the letters. It might sound lame and I might sound like a nerd here, but you got to do that. So let's take a look at the R. What are the distinguishing factors of the R? So you're looking at this part and you see, okay, you got a straight line coming down. That's like the backbone of the letter. Then you got this loop-de-loop that connects the top and the middle. Doesn't really matter how you connect the top and the middle, so you can do a circle, you can do a square, or you could even do a triangle. So I like the triangle look, so you can even do that. And then the third thing I would say that really sticks out about the R is the leg that flares out of the bottom. So you can do a short leg, which looks weak in my opinion. You could do a leg that comes out, you can do it coming down, or you could even have it flaring out. And there's so many possibilities, combinations. You could even add like a little tilde thing, or have this joint coming out right here. Same thing with the S. The S is one of the magical letters that I love, because no matter how you draw it and you flip it, it's still an S. So you have this S right here, but look, if I flip this upside down, it's still an S. That's what I love about it. Sometimes when you draw a letter, let's say, oh, I drew this S like this. I'm getting so bored of that, like small little loop-de-loop, bottom loop-de-loop. I need a fresh idea. Sometimes what I find is when you actually flip the paper upside down, you get a totally different sense of proportion and a way of flow. Like, hey, I actually like it with the fat top right there. It actually looks kind of cool, so I'm going to write my name like that, That looks pretty fly to me. So that's another little trick with some of the letters. With the E, same thing. You got 3 points coming out, but no one said 1 point has to be longer or 1 point has to be all the same. So you could flare out. Like I like to flare out the middle part of my E, especially because I tend to put that towards the end of my name. So I like to flare out the middle part or the bottom part, give it a little bit of a foundation. And there's capital letters and lowercase letters, so you can experiment with that. You can go with the lowercase e, you can go with the lowercase r, and you could mix and match that. So don't just restrict yourself to one thing, and you can always flip things, like Eminem has his e facing the other way. I like having my e facing that way too, because it kind of encapsulates your name. So I find that really cool. So let me continue on. You got the two pen method, right? I was talking about that. Let me get this Sharpie so it's better. Alright, so what do I mean by the two pen method? Let's take our letter R for example. So you get two pens or pencils or whatever, and you tape them together, and what you do is you basically draw a letter R, but you draw it just at least a little bit stylized to how you like it, okay? So if you look at this letter R, you can see that I have this kind of shadow that I built into it. And you can kind of connect the lines right there. And it's beginning to look like a graph letter. But the important thing about graffiti is you don't just stick with a simple letter. You might have an awesome hand style or tagging style, but when you're doing a piece at least, the most important part is developing your letter. Just like how I did that tutorial on my other channel, my personal channel, QIll, about developing your character. The more time you take developing your letter, the better your piece can come out. And really, whenever you decide that your letter's ready, that's pretty much when you're saying, oh, this is done, this can't be better. So here I'm just going to outline the parts that I drew already. And basically what I'm trying to point out here is, you can get a really dope outline, I guess, just with this. And like, let's say I colored this in. That's fine. But it's not really, artistic to me. That'd be just really simplistic. So what you want to start doing is adding depth and, variation in your line thicknesses and stuff. And that's where I think this technique kind of fails. Because if you notice, your depth and your lines are all dependent on exactly how you held the pen. So it's more of a calligraphy type of writing, which is cool. But if I held my pen this way, up and down, my lines would not look like this. And even with my lines looking like this, the distance between here and here and here and here are the same. And that's going to end up creating boring graffiti. So, with this, I would say it's probably like C+ work. And, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to try to develop it, okay? So hopefully it doesn't come out crap, but just give me a quick minute. Okay, so not the best looking letter ever, but it gives me an idea of stuff that I can add on and like little things I can add on. So you might not be able to see it very clearly, but I'm already planning my next step. Because basing your letter off of this, like I said, it really restricts you, Like you have a predetermined area here, here, and here, and it's not really allowing me to make the letter flex the way I want it to. So now what's important to me is, I think, a sketch. And I still sketch even though I know how the letter is looking in my mind, because when you draw with a pencil, you make mistakes. And sometimes those mistakes are good and it gives you ideas of, hey, actually this looks better and I wanna do it that way instead. So I think a pencil is really good. There's no shame in it. Of course when you go directly to marker or directly to paint, then that's impressive in its own right. But if you're just taking time like to improve your own style, then I don't see any shame in working with a pencil. So I'm actually gonna sketch this letter on the marker paper. Eraser is also a good thing to have. Okay, so I'm just outlining the sketch I did and stating the obvious. And I don't know why, but certain artists get really anal about when I turn the page to draw. I never understood that, because if you could turn a wall to manipulate it in a way that, better suits you, wouldn't you? I mean, yeah, I'm not going to be able to go out and when I'm piecing, I'm not going to be able to turn the wall. Okay, I understand that. But at the same time, like, it's a piece of paper. It's a sketch just for ideas. I don't really see the point in getting all crazed about, oh my gosh, that guy's using a ruler. He's not a true graffiti artist. Like, okay, so you want to make sure that you have the title of being a legit graffiti artist, but you want to have a crooked line for the rest of your life? Like, I never really understood that kind of stigma behind graffiti, I guess, or, being an artist. So my take on that is use whatever tools you have however you want, or else, what's the point? Like, I would rather have someone create a beautiful work of art with a ruler than have them put out something that they could have done much better on because they didn't have the ruler,